This 1 minute can shake you, break you, and make you see what years of running have hidden, because the greatest blindness is not the darkness outside, but the veil within. You think you know yourself, but do you? Strip away the titles, the opinions, the masks you wear for others, and you will face the raw truth that either convicts you or sets you free. In a single moment of light, your heart is laid bare, every desire, every fear, every secret thought revealed before the eyes of eternity. You cannot run from it, you cannot silence it, and you cannot excuse it. But here is the power. When you truly see yourself, you are not left in despair. You are given a chance to rise, to be remade, to walk in a life greater than your own strength. 1 minute is all it takes, and this minute is now. The mirror of the Spirit. Seeing yourself in God's, there comes a time in every life when the question echoes louder than all the noise of the world. Who am I, really? Not who people think I am, not who my family says I am, not even the image I build for myself, but who I am when everything else is stripped away. This is the crisis of identity that so many ignore, yet it is the foundation of everything else. To live without knowing yourself is to walk in shadows, to stumble through life chasing voices that do not belong to you. The tragedy of our time is not that people are lost in the world, but that they are lost within themselves. And the only way a person can ever truly understand who they are is by looking into the mirror of the Spirit. Every other mirror lies. The mirror of success flatters you for a moment, then abandons you when the applause fades. The mirror of people's approval shifts with their moods and leaves you insecure. The mirror of self, pride, shows you a distorted reflection, puffed up with false confidence but hollow inside. Only the mirror of the Spirit shows the truth, unshakable, unchanging, and eternal. When you look into the mirror of the Spirit, you see yourself not as you imagine, but as you are. Every layer of pretense falls away. The attitudes you hide behind, the words you speak without meaning, the habits you excuse, the fears you cover with smiles, all of it is exposed. That exposure is not meant to crush you, but to awaken you. Think of a man standing in darkness, filthy from head to toe, yet convinced he is clean because he cannot see. Then suddenly, a shaft of light breaks through, revealing the stains. In that moment, he has two choices: cover himself and run deeper into the dark, or step into the light and be washed. This is what happens when the Spirit becomes your mirror. You are confronted with the raw, unfiltered truth about yourself, but with that truth comes an invitation to transformation. Too often, people seek to understand themselves through comparisons. They measure their worth against others, how much wealth they have compared to their neighbor, how many followers compared to their peers, how much beauty compared to society's shifting standards. But comparison is a broken mirror. It never tells the truth. One person looks into it and feels pride because they appear taller than the one beside them, yet they are still standing in the mud. Another looks into it and feels despair because they appear shorter, not realizing that their true measure is far beyond the shallow standard they are using. The Spirit shatters these illusions. In His mirror, pride has no place and shame loses its grip. You see yourself as created with intention, loved with purpose, and called with destiny. This is not the shallow reflection of vanity, but the blazing truth of identity. Understanding yourself through the Spirit begins with humility. You cannot come to the mirror demanding that it agree with your image. You must come willing to be shown what you do not want to see. This is why so many avoid it. They fear what might be revealed: selfishness where they thought there was kindness, bitterness where they thought there was strength, emptiness where they thought there was fullness. Yet only by facing the truth can healing begin. A wound ignored becomes an infection, but a wound exposed can be cleansed and healed. The Spirit's mirror is not a cruel judge. It is a merciful physician. It uncovers not to condemn, but to restore. The greatest deception you can fall into is believing that ignoring the truth about yourself will protect you. No, it only delays the inevitable collapse. When the storms of life come, false foundations crumble. But the one who has looked honestly into the Spirit's mirror stands firm, because they have built their life on what is real. The Spirit not only reveals who you are, but also who you were meant to be. There is the you that exists now, shaped by choices, scarred by wounds, marked by failures and victories alike. And then there is the you that was dreamed into existence by the Creator. Most people lie trapped between these two versions, never knowing how to bridge the gap. But the Spirit's mirror shows you both, the brokenness of your present and the beauty of your potential. It whispers, you are more than this. You were made for more. And in that revelation comes the power to change. No motivational speech, no self-help book, no external affirmation can accomplish what a single moment in the mirror of the Spirit can do. It pierces deeper than the mind. It strikes the very soul. But here lies the challenge. To look into that mirror requires courage. It is easier to live on the surface, easier to distract yourself with entertainment, easier to drown the questions with busyness. Yet deep down you know those are only escapes. Sooner or later the silence finds you, and in that silence the truth rises. You cannot outrun the Spirit within you. You can only delay the encounter, and every delay is costly, because the longer you live without understanding yourself, the more you build a life on illusions. How many relationships are destroyed because people never confronted the selfishness in their own hearts? How many destinies are lost because fear was never brought to light? How many souls live unfulfilled because they never dared to ask, "Who am I in the eyes of God?" 1 minute of courage before the mirror can save a lifetime of regret. When you finally dare to look, something extraordinary happens. You not only see your flaws, you also see your worth. The same Spirit that reveals your hidden sins also declares your hidden value. You are not a mistake. You are not an accident. You are not defined by the failures of your past or the labels others put on you. You are defined by the imprint of the one who formed you. And once you see that in the mirror, you can never see yourself the same way again. You walk differently because you know you are not just existing. You are purposed. You speak differently because your words now carry the weight of truth. You live differently because your choices are guided not by fear, but by the vision of who you are called to become. This is the invitation of the Spirit's mirror, not just self-awareness, but transformation. To see yourself clearly is the beginning, but to step into that truth is the journey. You may stumble, you may struggle, but once you have seen, you cannot unsee. The light keeps calling you higher, stronger, deeper, and the more you return to the mirror, the clearer the reflection becomes. Slowly, steadily, you are remade, not into the image of the world, not into the brokenness of your past, but into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. That is the power of the Spirit's mirror. It is not a momentary glimpse. It is a lifelong revelation, and it begins with a choice to stop looking into the lying mirrors of this world and dare to look into the mirror that never changes. So I ask you now, when you wake tomorrow and face the day, which mirror will you look into? The mirror of opinions, the mirror of pride, the mirror of shame? Or will you look into the mirror of the Spirit, where truth and love meet, where brokenness and hope collide, where the deepest revelation of who you are waits to be discovered? Your answer will define your life, because you can never rise higher than the reflection you believe. Look into the mirror of the Spirit, and you will see not just yourself. You will see the one you were always created to be, the root before the fruit, the hidden power that shapes your life. Every tree tells a story, but not all stories are told with leaves and branches. Some are told in silence, in the unseen depths where roots stretch into the soil. You can admire the beauty of the fruit, you can marvel at the shade of the branches, you can even measure the height of the trunk, but none of it matters if the roots are rotten. A tree can only stand as strong as its roots, and a life can only flourish as deep as its foundation. The world teaches us to polish the fruit, put on the right clothes, speak the right words, gather applause, display success. But what use is shining fruit if the root is withering? Eventually the storm comes, and when it does, no one cares about appearances. They only care about what is strong enough to endure. And the truth is this: the visible is always a servant to the invisible. Before you ever taste the fruit, you must deal with the root. The root is the secret part of you. It is what you believe when no one else is listening. It is the motive behind your actions, the soil of your desires, the hidden chamber of your heart. If the root is pride, then even your kindness will be tainted. If the root is greed, then even your generosity will be poisoned with self-interest. If the root is bitterness, then every word will carry the sting of resentment. But if the root is truth, then the fruit will be pure. If the root is love, then the fruit will nourish. If the root is faith, then the fruit will endure beyond seasons. The fruit does not lie, it reveals the root. You may hide it for a while, you may polish your image, but eventually the harvest comes, and when it does, the root speaks louder than the leaves. This is why so many lives collapse unexpectedly. Outwardly, everything looked perfect. The career was thriving, the family seemed happy, the reputation was untouchable, but hidden beneath the surface was a weak root system, cut off from truth, starved of depth, poisoned by compromise, and when the storm hit, the fruit could not save them, because fruit has no strength without root. How many people spend their whole lives chasing fruit, more money, more recognition, more possessions, while ignoring the root that sustains it all. They shine for a season, but seasons change. They sparkle under applause, but applause fades. What remains is the question: what is beneath it all? The root is the place of honesty. It is the place no one else can see, yet it defines everything they will see. If you neglect your root, you will live a shallow life, always dependent on external approval, always desperate for temporary satisfaction. But if you tend your root, you will grow unshakable. Even when storms rage, even when droughts come, even when winds howl, the tree with deep roots still stands. This is why understanding yourself begins here, not in how you look to others, not in the achievements you can display, but in what is hidden within. The root determines your destiny long before the fruit is ever tasted. To strengthen the root, you must first be willing to examine it. What is feeding your inner life? What soil are you planted in? A root cannot survive in toxic ground. If your life is surrounded by lies, bitterness, envy, or corruption, your root will absorb it, and your fruit will show it. Change the soil and you change the harvest. Plant yourself in truth, surround yourself with wisdom, drink deeply of living waters, and watch as the root grows strong. The fruit will follow, not because you chase it, but because it flows naturally from what you have cultivated beneath the surface. There is a danger, however, in mistaking leaves for fruit. Many people confuse activity with growth. Just because a tree has wide branches or many leaves does not mean it will bear good fruit. A person may be busy, successful in the eyes of men, endlessly achieving, and yet, when the harvest comes, the fruit is bitter. Why? Because activity does not guarantee depth. Busyness is not the same as purpose. Only roots that go deep into the right soil can produce fruit worth eating. And fruit that lasts is never the result of surface living. It is born from a hidden life, nurtured in silence, strengthened in unseen places. Your root is tested in the quiet. No one applauds the root. No one praises the hidden disciplines, the private battles, the choices made in silence. Yet those are the moments that build strength. What you are in the dark is who you really are, and that hidden character will eventually write itself across the pages of your life for the world to read. This is why it is dangerous to only polish the outside. You may fool people, but you cannot fool seasons. When winter comes, the leaves fall, the branches grow bare, and all that remains is the strength of the root. If it is deep, the tree will rise again. If it is shallow, it will perish. The root before the fruit. That is the order of life. To reverse it is to guarantee collapse. Imagine a builder starting with the roof before laying the foundation. No matter how beautiful the structure, it will not stand. In the same way, a life without roots cannot last. People may admire you, envy you, even follow you, but admiration will not hold you together when trials hit. Only roots can. The deeper they go, the higher you can rise. And the paradox is this: the world may never see your roots, but they will always taste your fruit. That is why tending to the unseen is the most important work you will ever do. So ask yourself, what root are you feeding? Every word you take in, every thought you entertain, every relationship you keep, every habit you nurture, these are streams feeding your root. You cannot expect fruit of peace if your root drinks only of chaos. You cannot expect fruit of love if your root feeds on hatred. You cannot expect fruit of truth if your root is planted in lies. Life is not fooled. The harvest will come, and it will reveal the truth of what you allowed to grow beneath the surface. But here is the hope. Roots can change. You are not locked into the soil of yesterday. You can choose today where you will plant yourself. You can uproot from barren ground and replant in living soil. It may take time, it may take patience, but a new harvest will come, because fruit always follows the root. Do not despise the hidden seasons. Some of the most powerful growth happens when no fruit is visible. The root is going deeper, stretching wider, anchoring stronger. Do not measure your worth by what others can see today. The invisible work of the root is preparing a visible harvest for tomorrow. If you remain faithful, if you remain steadfast, if you nurture the root, the fruit will not fail. And when it comes, it will not be empty show. It will be nourishment, strength, life to others. The world does not need more polished leaves. It needs real fruit, and real fruit only grows from real roots. So remember this: the fruit you desire begins in the root you cultivate. Do not chase fruit and neglect the root. Do not polish appearances and ignore substance. Go deep, grow strong, stay hidden in the right soil, and in time your life will bear a harvest that no storm can destroy, no drought can wither, no enemy can uproot. The root before the fruit, this is the law of life. Embrace it, and you will never fear the seasons again. The voice within, hearing the whisper that defines you, there is a noise in this world that never ceases. The noise of opinions, the noise of expectations, the noise of culture shouting who you should be and what you should want. From the moment you wake up, the voices surround you, screens buzzing, people talking, comparisons pulling, demands pressing. Yet beneath all of it, there is another voice, quieter but deeper, not clamoring for attention, yet carrying the weight of eternity. This is the voice within. It does not shout, it whispers. It does not flatter, it convicts. It does not deceive, it reveals. To ignore it is to live a life driven by the outside, tossed back and forth by trends and opinion. To hear it is to step into truth, to understand yourself at the deepest level, and to find the compass that no storm can break. The tragedy of modern life is that people are drowning in noise but starving for clarity. They run from one distraction to another, one opinion to the next, desperately seeking affirmation, yet never pausing long enough to hear what their own soul is saying. They know how to perform for the crowd, but not how to listen in the silence. And because of this, they never truly know themselves. A man who cannot hear his own heart will always be a slave to the voices of others. A woman who cannot discern the whisper within will always be tossed by the loudest sound around her. But the one who dares to be still, who dares to quiet the chaos, who dares to listen in the silence, this is the one who discovers who they really are. The voice within is not just conscience, though it speaks through conscience. It is not just intuition, though it works through intuition. It is the echo of eternity placed in every soul. It tells you when something is false, even if the whole world calls it true. It warns you when the path is dangerous, even if everyone else celebrates it. It calls you higher when comfort says to settle. You cannot buy it, you cannot silence it forever, you cannot erase it. You can ignore it for a season, drown it in noise, bury it beneath busyness, but sooner or later it rises, whispering again, reminding you of who you are meant to be. Why do so many people run from this voice? Because it speaks truth, and truth confronts. It unmasks the lies we live by, the compromises we justify, the masks we wear for acceptance. The voice within is like a mirror to the soul, and not everyone wants to see their true reflection. It is easier to scroll through endless distractions than to sit in silence and ask hard questions. Am I living with integrity? Am I chasing what really matters? Am I becoming the person I was created to be? But avoidance does not erase reality. A neglected voice does not vanish. It only grows sharper in the still moments when the world's noise fades away. That uneasy feeling before you sleep, that quiet conviction in the middle of a conversation, that sudden awareness in the midst of busyness, that is the voice trying to break through. The greatest decisions of life are not made in the noise, they are made in the silence. The world may applaud your fruit, but it is the voice within that determines your route. The crowd may celebrate your success, but it is the voice within that defines your integrity. And when all the applause is gone, when the stage is empty, when the noise finally fades, it is the voice within that you must live with. You can fool the world, but you cannot fool the whisper of your own soul. You can silence the critics outside, but you cannot silence the conscience inside. And this is why so many successful people are still restless. They achieved the applause of the crowd, but ignored the approval of the inner voice. Learning to hear this voice requires discipline. Silence is uncomfortable in a world addicted to noise. Stillness feels unnatural in a culture that worships speed. But silence is not empty, silence is full. It is in the stillness that the whisper grows clear. The question is not whether the voice is speaking. The question is whether we are listening. The art of listening begins with slowing down. It begins with stepping away from the noise, turning off the distractions, creating space for reflection. In that space, the fog lifts, the confusion clears, and the voice that has been there all along becomes undeniable. The voice within will never flatter you into complacency. It will not tell you what you want to hear. It will tell you what you need to hear. Sometimes it will affirm, reminding you that you are stronger than you believe, more capable than you imagine, more loved than you realize. Other times it will confront, exposing the compromises you've excused, the pride you've hidden, the fear you've allowed to dictate your choices. Both are necessary. To hear only affirmation without correction is to drift into arrogance. To hear only correction without affirmation is to sink into despair. The balance of truth and grace in the inner voice is what shapes you into who you are meant to be. If you ignore this voice long enough, you begin to lose yourself. You live for the expectations of others, shaped by their opinions, trapped by their approval. You measure your worth by applause, your decisions by popularity, your value by comparisons. But deep inside you know something is missing. That ache you cannot explain, that restlessness you cannot shake. It is the soul crying out, "Listen to me." The longer you silence it, the louder the emptiness grows. No amount of success can fill that void, No amount of distraction can erase that ache. Only returning to the voice within can restore the alignment of your life. The freedom that comes from listening is indescribable. You no longer live as a prisoner of opinions. You no longer chase validation. You no longer fear silence. Instead, you live with a compass that points true north, no matter how the winds of the world blow. You find clarity in confusion, strength in weakness, courage in fear, because once you know the voice within, you cannot be shaken by the noise outside. The crowd may shout one thing, but you will know the truth in your heart. The world may call you a fool, but you will walk with confidence because you know you are aligned with something greater than yourself. And here is the wonder: the more you listen, the clearer it becomes. At first, it may feel faint, buried beneath years of noise. But every time you choose silence over distraction, every time you choose truth over compromise, every time you obey the whisper instead of the shout, the voice grows stronger. What was once a faint whisper becomes a guiding presence. What was once an uncertain nudge becomes an unshakable conviction. And with that conviction, your life gains direction, purpose, and power. So let me ask you, whose voice are you living by? The crowd that cheers today and forgets tomorrow, the critics who judge without knowing your heart, the lies of fear and shame that chain you to your past, or the voice within, eternal and unchanging, calling you to rise higher, walk straighter, live truer. That choice defines everything. The noise of the world will always be there, but the voice within is waiting. It is not distant, not unreachable. It is as close as your breath, as present as your heartbeat. If you will be still, you will hear it. And if you will obey it, you will finally discover not just who you are, but who you were always meant to be. The battle of flesh and spirit. The war that shapes your destiny. Every person alive carries a war inside. It is not fought with weapons. It is not visible to the eye, yet it is more decisive than any conflict in history. It is the battle between flesh and spirit, the clash of two masters pulling for control of the same life. On one side is the flesh whispering comfort, craving indulgence, demanding instant gratification. On the other side is the spirit, urging discipline, calling to purpose, pointing to eternal truth. The flesh cries, "Feed me now." The spirit whispers, "Live for more." This war is not optional. It is the reality of every heart, and how you fight it will determine not just your days on earth, but the destiny of your soul. The flesh is loud, persistent, and relentless. It thrives on desire without restraint. It does not ask what is good. It only asks what feels good. It does not care about tomorrow. It only demands satisfaction today. The flesh always takes the easy road, but that road leads downhill. It promises joy but leaves emptiness. It offers freedom but binds with chains. It sparkles with pleasure but poisons with regret. Many lives are ruined because they obeyed the voice of the flesh, trading long-term destiny for short-term satisfaction. The flesh always wants to be king, but its throne is built on sand. The spirit, by contrast, is quieter, but infinitely stronger. It is the breath of God within, the part of you that was designed for eternity. The spirit does not settle for the temporary. It seeks what is lasting. It does not bow to the cravings of the moment. It calls you higher to the things that matter most. When the flesh demands to indulge, the spirit says, "Wait." When the flesh pushes for selfishness, the spirit says, "Love." When the flesh tempts you to compromise, the spirit says, "Stand." And though the flesh mocks discipline as weakness, in reality it is the spirit's strength that makes a life unshakable. The spirit builds what the flesh can never destroy. But here is the truth: whichever side you feed will win. The battle is constant, but the outcome is not predetermined. If you starve the spirit and indulge the flesh will rule you. It will drag you where you never wanted to go, leaving scars you never intended to bear. But if you starve the flesh and feed the spirit will rise within you. It will lead you to strength, freedom, and purpose beyond anything the flesh could ever imagine. Every decision is a vote for one side or the other. Every thought entertained, every action repeated, every habit formed, it either feeds the flesh or strengthens the spirit. And the life you live tomorrow is the harvest of the choices you plant today. Look at the world around you. Why are so many people restless, broken, addicted, empty, though they seem to have everything? Because they have fed the flesh until it became their master. They have riches but no peace, pleasures but no purpose, crowds around them but loneliness inside. The flesh always promises fulfillment but never delivers. It is a hunger that grows with every feeding, an appetite that can never be satisfied. What began as a servant becomes a tyrant, and soon the person finds themselves chained to desires they can no longer control. That is the slavery of the flesh. Now look at those who walk by the Spirit. They may not always have applause, but they have peace. They may not always take the easy road, but they walk with strength. They may not always indulge in the moment, but they live with joy that does not fade. The Spirit gives what the flesh never can: freedom, freedom from addiction, freedom from fear, freedom from the endless need for approval. When the Spirit rules, a person is no longer tossed by cravings. They are anchored in purpose. They may face storms, but they are not destroyed. They may feel pressure, but they are not broken. The Spirit equips them to rise above the pull of the flesh and live in alignment with their true calling. The battle is fiercest in the moments of choice. You know the moments when temptation whispers and you feel the pull inside, when bitterness stirs and you want to lash out, when fear rises and you want to run, when pride swells and you want to boast. These are the battlefields where destiny is won or lost. To choose the Spirit over the flesh in these moments is to win small victories that add up to great strength. But to surrender again and again to the flesh is to weaken until you are enslaved. Freedom is not found in avoiding the battle. It is found in fighting it faithfully. Do not be deceived. This war will not end as long as you live in this body. The flesh will never stop demanding. The Spirit will never stop calling. But every victory makes the next battle easier. Every time you resist the flesh, its grip weakens. Every time you obey the Spirit, your strength grows. And over time, you will find that the voice of the Spirit becomes clearer, louder, more natural, while the voice of the flesh grows fainter, weaker, easier to silence. Discipline turns into desire. What was once difficult becomes your delight. That is the transformation of walking by the Spirit. Some will say, but it is too hard. Hard, yes, but not impossible. The flesh is strong, but it is not unbeatable. The Spirit is stronger, but it must be fed. Feed it with truth. Feed it with silence in the presence of God. Feed it with choices that align with your higher calling. Feed it with the company of those who walk the same path. And just as a tree grows unshakable by drawing from deep roots, so your spirit grows unshakable by drawing from the right source. You do not fight this battle in your own strength. You fight it by learning to rely on the power that was breathed into you from the beginning. The outcome of this war shapes everything. The flesh leads to emptiness. The Spirit leads to life. The flesh leads to chains, the Spirit leads to freedom. The flesh leads to regret, the Spirit leads to joy that no circumstance can steal. The question is not whether the battle is real. The question is which side you will choose. Do not wait until tomorrow. Every delay only strengthens the grip of the flesh. Every compromise makes the chain harder to break. But every choice for the Spirit, no matter how small, plants a seed of strength that will grow into victory. So I ask you, who is ruling your life right now? Is it the cravings of the flesh that pull you down, or the call of the Spirit that lifts you higher? You cannot serve both. One must win. The battle is raging inside you even now, and the choice is in your hands. Will you let the flesh rule you into emptiness, or will you rise in the Spirit and walk in freedom? The destiny of your life depends on the answer. The war between flesh and spirit is the greatest battle you will ever fight, but it is also the greatest victory you can ever win. The minute of awakening, one honest moment that changes everything. Life is made up of countless minutes, each one passing quietly into the next, unnoticed, forgotten, swallowed by routine. Yet not all minutes are equal. There are minutes that change you forever, moments that strip away illusion, break through denial, and confront you with a truth so powerful that you can never return to who you were before. This is the minute of awakening. It may come suddenly, like a lightning strike that exposes the darkness in an instant, or it may come slowly, like a dawn that gradually breaks the night. But when it comes, it seizes you, shakes you, and demands a response. In that single minute, you see yourself as you truly are, not as you pretend to be. And in that clarity, you are faced with a choice: turn away and remain unchanged, or step forward and be remade. The minute of awakening does not always arrive in comfort. It often comes in crisis. It comes in the silence after failure, when the applause has faded and you are left alone with your thoughts. It comes in the ache of emptiness, when all the things you thought would satisfy you have left you hollow. It comes in the sting of conviction, when you can no longer excuse the compromises that have chained you. It comes when the mask you have worn for years finally cracks, and you realize you cannot hide from yourself any longer. These are the moments that feel like breaking, yet in truth they are birthing. They are not the end of your story. They are the beginning of a new chapter, for awakening always begins with disruption. But here is the wonder: 1 minute of awakening can accomplish more than years of drifting. You can wander in circles for a lifetime, chasing shadows, avoiding truth, running from yourself. Then, in a single minute of clarity, the fog lifts, the lies crumble, the excuses vanish, and you finally see. That sight is a gift. It is a mirror held before your soul, exposing both your brokenness and your potential. And though it may pierce you with conviction, it also floods you with possibility, because if you can see it, you can change it. If you can recognize the chains, you can break them. If you can face the truth, you can walk in freedom. The minute of awakening is painful, but it is never cruel. It wounds only to heal. The danger is not that the minute never comes. The danger is that when it comes, we ignore it. Awakening demands response, but many turn away. They bury themselves in distraction, drown the whisper in noise, numb the ache with pleasure. They fear the light because it reveals too much. They fear the silence because it speaks too clearly. But to turn away from awakening is to choose bondage. It is to remain asleep while life passes by, to waste years repeating the same patterns, to die without ever truly living. There is nothing more tragic than a soul that refuses to wake when the moment calls. Awakening begins with honesty. 1 minute of brutal honesty with yourself is worth more than a lifetime of self-deception. Ask yourself, am I truly who I claim to be? Am I living in alignment with what I know is right? Am I hiding behind masks, or am I willing to face the truth? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary, for as long as you lie to yourself, you will remain chained. But the moment you dare to tell yourself the truth, even if it hurts, you are already free. Honesty is the doorway to awakening, and awakening is the doorway to transformation. The minute of awakening is also a minute of decision. To see the truth and do nothing is worse than never seeing at all. Once you have seen, you cannot unsee. Once you have awakened, you cannot return to sleep without a cost. That cost is your peace, your integrity, your destiny. Many lie tormented because they awakened once, but chose to ignore it. They know the truth, but they run from it. They feel the conviction, but they bury it. They saw the path forward, but they turned back. And so they live in inner conflict, restless and unsatisfied, haunted by the minute they refuse to embrace. But for those who dare to respond, awakening becomes the doorway to freedom. Think of it this way. A house filled with smoke may look normal from the outside, but inside the air is choking. If someone opens the window and light pours in, suddenly you see what you could not before. You realize the danger, you realize the need to act. That moment of realization is your awakening, but knowing is not enough. You must move or you will perish in the smoke. In the same way, awakening is only the beginning. It calls you to act, to change, to step out of the patterns that were killing you and into the life that is waiting. The minute of awakening is also a gift of grace. It is not earned, it is given. You cannot schedule it, you cannot demand it, you cannot manufacture it. But you can prepare for it by cultivating silence, by being willing to listen, by humbling yourself to receive truth. And when it comes, you must seize it. Do not delay. Do not say tomorrow. Tomorrow is the language of the flesh. Today is the call of the spirit. The window of awakening is not always open. If you turn away long enough, your heart grows hard, your ears grow deaf, your soul grows numb. Respond while the light is shining, while the whisper is clear, while the conviction is fresh. And here is the beauty. 1 minute of awakening can set the course for a lifetime. History is full of men and women whose entire destinies were changed by a single moment of clarity. They saw who they really were, they saw who they were meant to be, and they chose to cross the line. That choice turned weakness into strength, failure into purpose, despair into hope. Do not underestimate the power of 1 minute. 1 minute of truth can outweigh years of lies. 1 minute of courage can break chains carried for decades. 1 minute of surrender can birth a destiny greater than you ever imagined. So I ask you, what will you do with your minute of awakening? Will you bury it in distraction, or will you let it shake you into change? Will you turn away from the mirror, or will you face it with courage? Will you cling to the comfort of sleep, or will you rise into the light of truth? The choice is yours, and the moment is now. Do not wait for another sign, another season, another day. This is your minute, your chance, your awakening, and if you seize it, if you dare to face the truth and step into it, your life will never be the same again.